Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Council's Thursday, May 20th session. We will begin with a work session on the capital budget wrap-up and CIP reconciliation. First, let me thank our analysts, Mr. Levchenko and Dr. Orland, for the extended number of hours they put into this, including many weekends and many late nights. It's been a very difficult situation due largely to multiple federal and state grants we're dealing with and constantly changing revenues. We will get to your presentation later in the day. Next, I want to recognize Education and Culture Committee Chair Craig Rice to explain a new proposal for the CIP. Chairman Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I really want to thank Dr. Orland and Mr. Levchenko for their great work as well. Again, this has not been easy. And the reason why this has not been easy is because there are so many moving pieces that continue to happen. All of this is not to put any blame or put any consternation or anything on any particular person. The reality is that we have so many moving pieces that are floating out there. We've got Build to Learn Act, where we're still trying to analyze what the true amounts of money that we will be able to garner. We also have, when it comes to the actual school funding that we typically get every year. And so we have that money that's there. We also have pending what's happening at the federal government in terms of federal infrastructure money. There's a lot of different moving pieces that are out there, and it's similar to what we had last year. But there's a little bit of a difference this year. MCPS actually believes as though they will be able to move some of the pieces around to accelerate some of these projects and keep projects on track. Last year, it was, well, we may need to come back to this. And so we did when it came to South Lake, even though we had delayed and then eventually found the way to put this forward. In this case, it's the reverse. It's that we want to keep this on track because if we delay, there will be no time to actually get back into the queue for these. And so that time will actually be lost. And so you can't make that up this summer coming back to this issue. And so from that perspective, we're actually approaching this from the reverse. And so what it would be is to, again, ensure that our schools and our students are a priority, as they have been for the years that I've served on this council, the years that I've served with each and every one of you. And as we transition back to in-school learning, it is incredibly important to make sure that all of our buildings and we keep up with some of the enrollment growth that we will see here and into the future. You know, MCPS enrollment is expected to increase over 170,000 students by 2026. So that's within our CIP. To that end, we've got to make sure that we keep Woodward and Northwood High School projects on track to meet the capacity need requirements. I don't have to remind you that these are also schools that bear, as many of our schools do now, based on our presentation yesterday, a significant portion of students of color, students of lower socioeconomic status. And so it is incredibly important for us to reconcile and make sure that these two schools remain on schedule. And what we did is we actually offset keeping those on schedule via the initial proposal by delaying the Page Elementary School addition and Woodland Elementary School capital project, as well as Observation Drive and Bowie Mill Road Bikeway. What we're saying is we can do them all. And we can do them all by changing our revenue assumptions and making sure that we understand that according to MCPS, they have the opportunity to capitalize more on the rollout of the Build to Learn Act dollars and take as much advantage of that funding as possible. Again, those numbers are still to be flushed out. They are still working with that, but in the late conversations into the late afternoon and evening with Montgomery County Public Schools and Seth Adams, it was very clear that there's a different take in terms of what the strategy could be and what it is that we could garner in terms of those additional funds if we strategize correctly. It may mean some movement that happens as we come back this summer, as we've already said we would anyway. And so let me be very clear. This is no guarantee that things will be able to continue as they are. But for right now, there's no reason to not keep them on track because there is the potential for us to ensure that these very important projects continue to move forward. And so It is my intention as chair of the Education and Culture Committee that if this proposal is adopted by the council, that we would be able to keep Page and Woodland on schedule, minimize the additional delays to some other projects, and if our fiscal environment is not what we expect, we will convene anyway as an Education and Culture Committee and then revisit those projects to make any adjustments as we did before when it came to the South Lake discussion. So that is what's before us. I've sent a memo to each of your offices, to each of you individually. And so just wanted to make sure that that information was out there, Mr. President. I turn it back to you and look forward to the discussion this afternoon at 1:30.
Sorry, Council Vice President Albornoz.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank our Education and Culture Committee for their continued leadership. We know, as the chair noted, this has been an extraordinarily difficult CIP. There's a lot of moving parts with federal funding coming in, with school capacity issues and challenges moving forward. And so I appreciate the diligence and thoughts that went into the proposal that was developed very recently. I guess I know we will be analyzing this afternoon, but Councilmember Rice, could you elaborate a little bit more on the conversations with MCPS and why there may be a higher degree of confidence that there will be state funding than what was initially proposed in the CIP that we had discussed previously? Like what's out there in that world that we're not aware of that may be helpful for us to feel better about this?
So strategically, it's all about moving things around, and it's akin to what we did last year when it came to South Lake. There are existing projects that may actually be able to capitalize on some existing funding. There's a lot that's there, and Councilmember Albornoz, I digress because I don't have Mr. Adams with us today, but he would share with you exactly, but it was very clear on the call yesterday evening with our council staff and with OMB that Mr. Adams felt as though we could certainly be more aggressive than we have been in terms of what our assumptions may be, and that MCPS was committed to making sure that they would be able to restructure their CIP to take advantage of all of the different available sources and strategies that would garner us the most money possible. Now, again, this is aggressive. Let me just be very clear. However, we lose time if we do not stand aggressive now, then we lock in those delays. And so MCPS firmly believes, staff firmly believes that they can move forward with this and ensure that we keep all of these things and maximize the amount of money and keep all of these projects on track as proposed in the memo.
Thank you. And what's Mr. Anderson's role, Chairman Rice? Could you remind us what's his title?
Oh, no, Mr. Adams, Seth Adams.
Sorry.
So he's in charge of capital for MCPS.
Okay,
Yep.
Got it. And I know you've been working at this on the state level for a long time now. You know, from 30,000 feet, it is a change in approach and strategy. I like the way that you placed that, being aggressive. It's a little under promise, over deliver was sort of what we had been discussing, and now we're taking a little bit of a risk and potentially over promising and under delivering. I mean, that's when you get to the heart of it. That's what is before us. So it's a little bit of a gamble. I'm not a big gambler, I'll be candid. But I do appreciate, trying to balance all of this and trying to move a lot of pieces. I will probably have more specific questions of staff on the domino effect that this may or may not create when we present this afternoon. And I know they're now in a position to have to present two options, the one which was ready to be presented today, and the second scenario that if we choose to adopt this and vote on this afternoon would reflect these changes. But that does help provide a little bit of context that I'm going to need to process over the break, and then we'll have some questions after that. But thank you.
Councilmember Albornoz, the only thing that I would just add, as to the reason why, and again, just reiterate the reason why we need to be aggressive is because if we lose the time with Woodland and Page, we don't get it back. With Southlake, we could get it back. And so we don't have that luxury this time. And so once a delay, locked in. Before with Southlake, it was once a delay, but we can accelerate and it would be fine. That is not the case here. So if you lock it in, if we lock in today, then that's what it is. And so that's where the difference is between what we were dealing with last year versus what we're dealing with this year. So there is a very different scenario that's at play, which is the reason why I felt as though we needed to be more aggressive. The reason why we, the Education and Culture Committee and the Council President felt as though we needed to be more aggressive because we certainly don't want to lose any of that time and then find, as we did with Southlake, that we could actually accommodate the projects. That would be, I think, a disservice to those communities. So.
You both good? Okay. I have a number of colleagues I want to recognize, but let me just add a few thoughts. This approach is new to me too, and was first kicked around last night and elaborated on, further this morning. So all of us are digesting this in real time. But I got to say, I'm grateful to Chairman Rice and Councilmember Navarro and Councilmember Jawanda for putting this forward, because I think it's thoughtful and it's consistent with our equity goals and our commitment to equity as it's reflected in our CIP choices. Delays cost money. It's not just that what Councilmember Rice said about losing time and the lost quality of life and experience of the students who are waiting to be out of a portable and into a classroom, or teachers to attend the school that is going to be a school that they can work in for a long time, or staff that are able to work in a place with good, reliable HVAC and a safer indoor environment. But delays cost money too. It's not just the quality of life, lots of money. And there's a lot of cost in our CIP due to delays that we've had to experience in the past. Contractors and materials are very hard to come by right now. Just open the business press and you'll see that. There are no options in front of us that offer perfect certainty. Nobody can offer an option that is perfectly certain of the future. None of us have a reliable crystal ball. We are in the most dynamic, and that's true every year, but it's particularly true this year because we are in the most dynamic fiscal environment we've ever been in. We've complained for years, me as loudly as anyone, that we have not received our fair share of education funding from the state, not to mention childcare funding and mental health funding and transportation funding. But recently we've seen the state step up and be more responsive to our needs. And that hasn't happened by ourselves. It's happened with the hard work of a lot of our elected officials and our state delegation and better coordination with them. And after getting so little from the federal government for so long, since the ARA money at the beginning of the Obama administration, the last recession, we suddenly have a friend in the White House, and not just a friend, but somebody proposing the biggest infrastructure package in American history. And there's bipartisan support for it because it's so overdue. The last president proposed it and never talked about it, but he never proposed it. This president actually is proposing it, and it's at 80% support. It's the most popular thing in his agenda, and has Republican support across the country. So we have to believe there's going to be infrastructure funding coming to Montgomery County. I'm more concerned that we don't have enough shovel-ready projects and enough preparation to take the best advantage of it. But we've already received a lot of ARPA money. Our municipal governments have received a lot more on top of that. The school system is receiving their own pot of money, and there's additional transit money going to WMATA and Ride-On. And that's great news. And we've asked Representative Trone and Brown for earmarks, 7 of them for Montgomery County. And I want us to ask them for funding for a much larger transit package. All that takes pressure off our local government, which has been filling in gaps that should have been funded by the state and the federal government for decades, in my opinion. So we've never been in such a supportive environment. I think given all that, it's responsible and reasonable to change some of our historic assumptions, and to recognize that if we don't, we're building in more delays and more cost into the CIP. So that's where I am. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And thank you to Chairman Rice and to everyone else who worked on this proposal. Candidly, I agree with you, Council President, that delays do cost money, but we also have to think about what happens to the delays of our students who have gone through perhaps the roughest year that they could possibly go through last year, and what the delays would mean to those students. I know, and everybody on this council knows of the terrific concern, and rightfully so, of what happened with Southlake Elementary last year. And Mr. Chair Rice and everyone else got together, whether it was in our districts or not, we got together and said we need to help our children. And I believe this is a good possibility. And to the point, this is not guaranteed, and no one should think it is. And candidly, I've learned that there's very few guarantees in life, but this is not guaranteed. But this is a step in the right direction. And if we don't do this, then I think we would be wrong. So I'm in support of this proposal. I think it's the right thing to do. I believe it's the right discussion to have. And you know, I keep talking about this is the Magic Beans budget. Well, thank goodness for magic. And I think this is a good proposal. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Although I just wouldn't call it magic, because finally the feds and the state are stepping up and meeting their responsibility. Councilmember Novato.
I think that's magic as well, by the way. Anyhow, thanks.
Yeah, fair enough.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'll be completely honest. Obviously, every single year is a very different, brings a very different framework. And we always do whatever we can to manage what the circumstances are. This is a different approach. I am going to put it out there. It is very true what Councilmember Albornoz said. You know, usually I think we try to underpromise and overdeliver. We have been mindful of our spending affordability guidelines. We've been mindful of our debt service. We've been mindful of all these things. But I do believe that this year is a bit different because we do have these possibilities coming from the state with the Build to Learn Act. We do have these possibilities with an infrastructure program that might bring, hopefully, funds for infrastructure. Perhaps it's going to be more focused on roads. We don't know, but you know, whatever gives us some flexibility, we take it. And so I view this as simply a change in strategy of being a little more bold, because there are a couple of variables that we didn't necessarily have in the past to count on. But make no mistake, it is absolutely true that because it's a different approach, it might mean that if things don't materialize the way we are hoping, given the indications that we've seen, that we may have to then make some adjustments. That is true. It is also true that next year is the full CIP, which means that we also may have to make further adjustments. That is also true. But the one reason why I thought that considering things like making different assumptions and or even including language in the PDFs that would signal to something of the sort, that perhaps it would be a wise approach, specifically because some of these projects, as it was mentioned before, really have issues around what a delay would mean, et cetera. So, you know, I think that we need to be very transparent in the sense that, yeah, there is this possibility. We also know that it is, you know, absolutely the case that we may have to come back in the summer even to revisit some of these things. So I just believe that given those sort of new instances, those new realities, that we can be a bit more aggressive. And then it's not as if we haven't had to do this before. It's not it's not comfortable and it's not pleasant, but we have had to come back and make adjustments that have not been necessarily in the best direction in the past, but perhaps it is a moment where we can have this kind of approach. Now, this is not as aggressive as some of us would want to be on some issues, of course. There's no doubt, because there are other projects out there that some of us wish we could accelerate further, or actually, reinstate, et cetera. I think this is modest in that way, but I believe that that is reasonable, again, given the fact that we're facing different circumstances. So, we can see where it goes, and I, stand ready to work with all of you and with our constituents, et cetera, to make sure that we make adjustments if that's necessary, but hopefully we won't. And I think that would be a win-win in the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. Appreciate all the comments, appreciate the proposal and the interest in trying to pursue these projects. I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding what the proposal is. And I recognize that I only learned about it at 9:40 this morning. So, but I've heard a few different things mentioned today. I've heard that MCPS has identified the ability to move things around within the existing CIP to make additional funds available for some of these school projects. Mr. Adams and others, I've heard that we're anticipating more state funding than was initially assumed, potentially having the federal government provide more funding for schools. Could I just have an understanding of what exactly, what is the are we increasing the size of the CIP in order to do this? Are we adding another category, that's based on available funds? I'm not entirely clear what the proposal is, how it's going to work, and how it fits into the broader CIP that's going to be before us this afternoon. So if I could just get some clarity on that, that'd be helpful.
Councilmember Rice.
So essentially, Councilmember Friedson, what we're doing is we're just changing our revenue assumptions for what we believe we can get via matching funds, via Build to Learn Act, as well as some of the school dollars to make the adjustments necessary. And so it really is just that simple. It's really just adjusting the assumptions because MCPS feels as though they can capitalize on more money by moving some projects around. They don't have specifics as of yet. This is all what's happening last night, and just through the cursory look at what's going on and how they intend to try and maximize every single dollar. All too well, coming from Annapolis, how this works and how other jurisdictions that MCPS has seen have started to repurpose and move money around to prioritize and lock down every single dollar for their jurisdictions. And MCPS is looking at following suit and doing the same exact thing. And so from that perspective, this would just be suggesting those revenue assumptions to be able to keep these projects on pace.
Is there a dollar amount of how much we're expecting higher than what we had been operating under throughout the entire budget process?
Dr. Orland and Mr. Levchenko would be able to provide us with that information about what the exact dollar amount is for the additional revenue assumptions for each of those particular years to where we don't have balance in the CIP.
I'm sorry. I want to interrupt.
Dr. Orland.
No. That was the lead in for you, Dr. Orland.
Oh, okay. I don't want to. I guess what Keith and I need before this afternoon is specifically what projects in what years are we looking to fund, because this is all done by project, and I will try not to mention what's in them, but we circulated a initial reconciliation proposal to council members on Monday, and then we came back with a second one yesterday. Are we saying try to make that first one work with the addition, except that we would not delay Northwood? Is that what we're looking at?
So, Dr. Orland, I'm a little bit confused about why you don't know what we're doing, since we talked about it yesterday evening and then
I'm not sure everybody, because we talked all individually and haven't talked as a council. I just trying to understand that we had a reconciliation package on Monday, which had
Northwood
specific.
and Woodward, right? So
Well,
Northwood and
Woodward. Okay, Northwood and Woodward, but all the other reductions, deferrals in that initial reconciliation would still stand.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So the
So
only
it's-
thing that would change would be accelerating the Northwood Woodward project to make sure that there was no delay there,
All right.
and
okay.
adding in Page and Woodland, Observation Drive, Bowie Mill. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay. There's Page was part of the original reconciliation. Woodland
Right.
was not.
Right.
So, but you will now want to add Page as well.
That's correct.
And then there are several other projects also that were in that reconciliation that were delayed, but you don't want to accelerate those. It's strictly
right.
Page and Woodland.
Those are
Okay.
those are the priorities as we've discussed with MCPS staff. Again, this is ongoing on the fly, but those are the ones that we hear from staff would be ones that they feel as though strategically they would be able to garner and work towards getting the additional Build to Learn funds that they're talking about. So
Okay.
Could I just, so I'm confused as to how Observation Drive and the Bowie Bikeway project relate to the school funding that we think is going to become available and the moving around of the school CIP.
Yeah, this
Great
is why I'm
question.
asking. This is why I'm asking.
Great question.
Because,
those were sought as sources because we didn't have the money for these school projects, and so those were sought out as the ones to be contributory to us being able to fund the schools. But if we are now saying that we are changing our revenue assumptions to allow for these projects to move forward, therefore we don't need to steal from these particular projects, delay these projects, because we are now assuming that the revenue is actually there because we're changing our revenue assumptions. Look, let me just say again that it's very the state is very interested in pursuing the Build to Learn funding for the 12 projects that are scheduled to begin construction this coming school year. And so there's a lot that the state is looking to do right now that will help MCPS as a whole. So again, while there are a lot of moving parts that are out there, all those projects are on a path of forward funding, and Build to Learn dollars could actually shift that on to on-time state funding. So there's a lot of shifts that could be happening that would free up that additional money. And so therefore, what we are saying is we don't need to find and rob Peter to pay Paul and take away from these projects that we delayed based on what we were trying to do to keep these schools on track. And so those were not, when we took our straw votes as a council, those were not things that we said we wanted to do. We took straw votes and said we would have kept Observation Drive at the half-year delay. We all voted and raised our hands to that.
The challenge is we took straw votes and also didn't want a number of other projects that were cut as well. I mean, the Capitol Crescent Trail Tunnel is among them. The second metro entrance at White Flint is among them. There were a number of other projects that were delayed. I just have trouble understanding. I mean, I understand the point of being aggressive and making different assumptions about the Build to Learn and state funding. I think that's a policy discussion we can have of, as was stated earlier, whether we want to, overpromise and potentially run the risk of under-delivering versus the higher strategy that we had. But the transportation projects, are a little bit different. Could we hear?
Councilmember, hold on. There's a queue. There's a lot of colleagues waiting to get into it. So if you want to be recognized again, I'm happy to put you back in the queue.
Okay, I just would like to hear from, I don't need to be recognized again, but I'd like to hear from executive staff. I know was on the,
Sure, I'll call on the executive staff when we get to her place in the queue.
I just to be honest, I mean, Councilmember Rice was speaking for most of the time that I had. So I appreciate it. I was going to ask a question of executive staff, but if you want to call on them, then that would be fine. Thank you.
Sure. They're in the queue too. Councilmember Jawanda. Sorry, Councilmember Rice, were you finished? Okay, Councilmember Jawanda.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to state since I was a signatory to the memo, I understand it came in as we're trying to figure this out, I think several colleagues said, Councilmember Navarro said, this is a different year. This is not how in the council president. I think most people won't be surprised. I was pleasantly surprised in the approach of being more aggressive, and in trying to say that we will do our very best, realizing what's ahead and kind of cup half full, that we will be able to get these things across the finish line, realizing the needs for our students and their families in these buildings, and not losing money, and go down the list, all the many factors that have been mentioned. And to say that we're also, if we can't get it done through that amalgamation of federal, state, local funding, changing economy, that we'll come back and say we're going to have to make adjustments and really be honest about that, or we're going to figure out another way. We're going to look at other revenue sources that are, at our level, and I think all that will be on the table, and we'll be honest, and we'll have a discussion, and we'll make a decision. But I think it is the appropriate thing to say we are committing to this. There's a need. We're going to do it, and we think we're optimistic because of the environment we're in, that this will work out. And so definitely understand that this is a change in approach, one that I welcome with my colleagues, and appreciate. I think I did my math that Councilmember Katz agreed with the approach, and so we're going to get there. And it's just about now articulating it, getting it on paper, having the presentation at 1:30, answering questions, and then moving forward. So I think this is the right approach, and just wanted to thank Councilmember Rice and Councilmember Navarro and the Council President and other colleagues for bearing with us in a very different year, for a lot of reasons. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. As I understand it, I don't know that I would characterize this as aggressive or anything like that. It's really trying to give MCPS more time to see how they can fit things together. And, it's possible, as happened last year, that with the benefit of a bit more time, we can get where we want to go. I need to better understand, what some of these variations would be and what the implications are. It sounds like the downside risk, if I understand it, is that if the MCPS is not able to secure additional funding, and we have already started with Woodland and Page, as I think this proposal seeks to do, then there will be if we do this, they'll start with Woodland and Page. That will commit funding. That funding is also needed essentially for other projects. And if we don't have the ability to replace it, we'd have to come back. And presumably, for example, that might be Northwood that gets delayed, which impacts other families. So Blair. So at the end of the day, it's going to the advantage of this approach is you can get started now on Page and Woodland, and if MCPS can figure out how to bring everything together, then we can proceed with all of the projects. And if we can't, then there's a reckoning there. I will say, I have said before, I'm open to the recordation tax. I don't know if that would have to become necessary. I don't think so. But I think the intent here is to seek additional state and federal funding and bring everything together in the end. And I will say, to the credit of the committee chair, that's what he proposed essentially that we do last year, and it worked. We delayed, functionally gave MCPS more time to put pieces together, and then came back and lined everything up. So to me, it's just more of a matter of giving MCPS more time than anything else. And I will spend the next few hours looking closely through what the implications are.
Right. Okay. You're exactly right. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I think, let me first start and say I appreciate the creative thinking and the policy proposal by Chair Rice and members of the E&C committee and President Hucker as well. I think it's a matter of, when, we want to make some tough decisions. And I think in this budget, we've made tough decisions. And clearly we're not all happy with the decisions we had to make based on the fiscal reality that is before us. And I know residents are in those communities that are impacted by some of the decision making are not happy, but again, we're not happy either, which is why we're having this conversation to try to figure out how to make the circle whole and do right for our residents who need assistance and need the infrastructure improvements. Absolutely. And so I think, we made these tough decisions now. If we move forward with this policy based on the assumptions, then hopefully we don't have to have any course correction. But if the assumptions are wrong, and that's the downside here, that we'll have to make some tough decisions later in the future. So tough decisions are the downside in this situation. And let me just expand the scope even a little bit more, that if the assumptions here on, Page and Woodland are based on the Built to Learn Act from the state, there's a lot of conversations taking place down on Capitol Hill on Pennsylvania Avenue right now, about infrastructure bills, right? Which might be able to accommodate Observation Drive and Bowie Mill Bikeway, right? So more optimistic thinking, and I think all of us hope to be optimistic. And so, right, thank you, Chair Rice. And so, but that's the gamble that Vice President Albornoz alluded to. And so I'm caught in this. I get it. I understand the hope and optimism about these state and federal proposals. And how they will help us in the here and now in places that need it here and now. And so the one thing is setting those expectations if they don't materialize. And the tough decisions that we've made, we will have to come back and make once again if those funds don't come through. And so, I'm going to take the next few hours to think about this and think about how we help all of our residents and how the expectations of support from the state and federal government should be best made in our budget decisions today. But again, I appreciate the policy conversation, and I'll just add, I'll just end it there. So thank you all.
Thank you. Yes, pros and cons either way, assumptions either way. Council Vice President Albornoz.
Thank you. I know that Ms. Beck was in the queue, so I'd like to defer to her for just a response from the executive branch, and then I'd like to get back in the queue if that's okay, Mr. President.
Sure. Ms. Beck.
Yeah, I was part of a conversation yesterday, and I appreciate the opportunity to have been brought into the conversation, but I think that some of the things that Councilmember Rice talked about sound very promising. I don't know if there's any availability of federal aid. In our prior conversations with MCPS staff, that didn't seem as promising as we'd hoped. And I find it very encouraging that MCPS is talking about trying to help repackage their projects in ways that maximize the state aid, but we still have some very fundamental problems. This may have been a detail that sort of got missed in the rush, but I have to say right now in our CIP in FY25 and 26, we have an assumption of $85 million in state aid. And that is mostly related to keeping our traditional funding levels and about $45 million in Built to Learn Act. But at this point, we only have $40 million worth of eligibility. So we have a $45 million hole already in those 2 years. On the executive branch side, and then in talking to council staff, we were saying, well, let's see what we can do to work that out. But that's a huge vulnerability. The issue is not, do we have eligible projects with MCPS? We have more than enough eligible projects. The problem is we don't have the match to pay for it. It takes 3 of our dollars right now to get $1 of state aid. And I mean, we have structural problems right now in the way that we budget for MCPS. We tend to front load CIP, and then there's no money in the out years. So we fund a lot of other projects, mostly transportation in those years. And then when we get closer, we have to bump them out all the time because now MCPS comes in with their new projects, their legitimate needs. I am just concerned, and I don't know the details, so I don't know what years, I don't know what the order of magnitude is, but I am concerned that we will be going out further on a limb that we don't want to be on. And I think there is a very real concern of over-promising and under-delivering. I think we're doing it now without meaning to. And I think that's something we need to work to fix. And we've been talking to council staff, and I had some conversations with Craig Rice and his staff. There's a lot to be done, but I think this would be wrong to go that far.
Ms. Beck, just to respond to those two things, I think everything you say is totally reasonable. I would just point out that you're sort of assuming the future will be exactly the same as the past. And I'm hopeful, I'm hopeful that the future is going to be different and better than the past. We've had a school system that for years hasn't adjusted our boundaries. And for years, we have multiple schools that are overcrowded, and we have been building portables and additions and other things to allow to pack more students into those schools, while they're right next to schools that have unused capacity, all because we haven't revisited our boundaries in 20 years. Now that process has changed. Now there's finally going to be common sense and flexibility imposed on our use of finite public resources. We do that with fire stations every few years. We do with police stations every few years. We haven't done it with schools. It's common sense. And now we are teed up because of the boundary analysis to change that practice going forward and use our limited public resources, assets, more efficiently. And second, we have catered to local school advocates in many ways and built schools in palatial ways in many places that have forfeited millions of dollars of state aid and left it on the table in Annapolis because we didn't want to say no to advocates that wanted a particularly large facility. We are now finally discussing doing things in a way that optimizes our approach to Annapolis and brings in more state aid. And I think that's a very good and healthy thing that would have happened a long time ago. So I'm not assuming the future is going to be exactly the same as the past. And that's why I think we have more projects eligible and more state aid coming in.
I think that you bring up some good points. I did want to also clarify a couple things because I know people have sort of maybe put some hope in terms of recordation tax. And I did just check back in terms of the subdivision staging proposal that had been put forward, where 50 cents would have been added to the premium and to the base rate. You were looking at about $12 million a year. You know, compare that to the 40 million. You're talking too about South Lakes, and that is not something that can be replicated all the time, frankly. I mean, that was shaking out the couch cushions of old project savings. We've used them up. So unless suddenly MCPS is having a lot more project savings, I think it'll be hard to replicate. So, you know, I think as long as you're comfortable, if you want to go forward with this, and I think someone brought up the fact, if you like start the construction contract on Woodland and Page, that means you will have to delay other things if we end up short. And I think the other thing that causes me concern is a part of why this budget has been so strange is delays of some very large projects, mostly the Purple Line and a little bit of schedule change with Woodward. Those dollars then become very inflexible. You can't move those. You know, we're going to have to pay for the Purple Line once it's under construction. So we can't move those dollars. It's just going to put more pressure on other things.
I don't think what you're saying is accurate about the Purple Line, but Council Member Rice.
Yeah, so this is an argument about assumptions. Let's just be very clear. And so folks want to assume more conservative. Some may not want to assume as conservative. it's all about assumptions. There is no fact, there is no exact number. So this is all an argument about assumptions. At the moment, MCPS has $378 million in projects available for Build to Learn Act, a lot more than the $45 million in the next several years. Now, Ms. Beck, it seems as though, you're looking at taking this over the course of 10 years, but the state is actually looking at, from what I understand in my conversations with MCPS, looking to accelerate that much more quickly. I will just also say that 25 and 26, we also have a significant CIP that we'll be able to address next year, which is our full CIP year, where we're able to address all those things as we typically do. And if at that point we need to adjust, if it comes to revenue that's coming in, I know that Councilmember Duwando and others are very apt to talk about ways in which we can garner additional revenue. We can have those kinds of discussions. But let me just be very clear. Again, if we're going to assume, let's assume on the sides of kids, right? Let's assume on the sides of making sure that we can get these schools there. And if we have to make some tough decisions down the road, we will do so. But I will just tell you this, as I did before, I am not coming before you, and I would never do this and put my fellow colleagues in jeopardy if I did not believe in my conversations with MCPS that we could actually make this work. You trusted me last time, and I'm asking you to trust me again. There's a reason why I am Education and Culture Chair, and it's because you trust me in leading us in an effort to try and make these things happen. As I look over Councilmember Reamer's shoulder, it is apropos that I see President Obama and the Hope poster. I do have hope, as I did last year. No, Councilmember Glass brought it up. I mean, seriously, it's just weird. It's like, I do have hope. And I really believe in my conversations that we can make this work. So please, let us make this work. Let us err on the side of assumptions that are in the positive for our kids and can make sure that we move this forward. I will work tirelessly. I promise each and every one of you to work with MCPS, to work with our staff, to work with OMB, as we did last year, to make this work. And so that is my pitch to you.
I think just one thing, though, I did want to say, one of the reasons we recommend spreading out the Built to Learn funding is because we want to make sure we're also keeping our traditional aid. The state would look very good if we paid for all of our projects with Built to Learn, but I don't want to lose our traditional aid. I want this to be additive, and I know Craig does as well.
No, nobody wants that, Ms. Beck. We're all on the same page. Okay. Colleagues, any others?
Yeah, Mr. President, sorry. Just in preparation for the in preparation for the discussion this afternoon, I know central staff is working on this, but just to confirm, if you can please provide the delta, the number that these projects would represent in the budget. What more, in other words, what's our target for federal aid, for state aid to be able to pay for these projects? Because right now we don't have the money to pay for them, and if we don't get the state aid or federal aid, then we're going to have to delay other projects. So that's one. Mr. Orland, you have your hand up. Sorry. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. To answer that, I think following the discussion earlier, we're going to keep all the reductions and deferrals that were in the first reconciliation and only add back Northwood and Woodland. And I want to mention something about Bowie Mill Road Bikeway. That Bowie Mill Road Bikeway was in the original reconciliation. So that if we follow that rule, we would not be accelerating that project. And Page, you'd be making an exception for because that was also in the original reconciliation. But your point, I think, is that if we delay Page a year, you've really delayed it. You can't come back and revisit it because construction was going to start. So my clarification for all of you is, because we have to actually crunch all the numbers and make all the things work out in terms of what numbers fall where. It is the first reconciliation, but accelerating Northwood, not decelerating Woodland, not decelerating Northwood, not decelerating Woodland, and also including an acceleration of Page, period. And then in terms of answer your question, Mr. Albornoz, what we'd have to do is see how much money is short in FY22. And it's not just FY22, by the way. It's FY22, FY23, FY24. I'm not sure about FY25, but probably at least the first 3 years, we'd have to assume more. We'll have to call it state aid, I guess, because we have to, on every PDF, we actually have to put a funding source. We can't just say, oh, it's going to come from somewhere. It has to have a funding source. So I think what we'll use, we'll talk to OMB about this, but I think we'll use is state aid. We'll just have a higher state aid assumption. If we can't use bonds, because then that will be like we're adding county money and will exceed spending affordability. With those understandings, we'll present an alternative, that alternative to you at the 1:30 meeting. But I just needed to get that, make sure that was what we're talking about.
And if I could get a better understanding between now and 1:30 of what happens if we don't get that state aid, what's the cascading effect for other projects? What are the scenarios, just generally speaking, without naming specific projects? I'd just like to get a better understanding, especially for the public, to set expectations. I totally trust our Chairman Rice. He is amazing, and totally trust the conversations he's had. Have more hope than my glass is always half full, and care deeply about our kids, and don't want to see any of these projects delayed across the board. I mean, we're all 1,000% united on that. I just want to get a better understanding of what the implications are of this. And frankly, when we discuss this afternoon, we got to figure out how this does not set any sort of precedence, acknowledging, I agree with everyone, that this is an unusual year in a good way, with the potential for a lot of federal, state, and state aid in that we haven't seen in a long time, which is amazing, which we'd all be super excited about. But this can't be the precedent moving forward. So
the implication, I can say this I think pretty clearly, and Keith weigh in if I'm wrong. It would mean that Woodland and Page would not be delayed in any circumstance, even if the money is short, because construction will have started. Northwood could potentially still be delayed because that's not for a while yet, and the same is true with with several other projects in CP. Schools or not, but it would mean that Woodland and Page stay on schedule regardless, even if the money doesn't show up.
Got it. Okay. All right. I'll look forward to the assessment and evaluation this afternoon at 1:30 and the crunching of the numbers. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Albanese, I think the risk is in the later years of the CIP, 24, 25, and 26. Projects that haven't moved forward yet would be at risk if the state aid didn't come through, because as Mr. Orland mentioned, the other projects are in some degree of construction. That would be the last thing we would do, is we would stop projects that are under construction. So it'd be the next wave of projects that would be at risk. And state aid in the out years, as we mentioned before, is already something we're concerned about. So we'll take a very careful look at that this morning.
Right. That's a good thing to be concerned about. Historically, we've been pretty bad at predicting state aid in the past. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. I'm still trying to catch up to this. I appreciate the clarifications that Council Vice President Albornoz just requested. I'll second those because I'm interested in those as well. Appreciate the moving forward on the school projects and that piece of it. I do think on the transportation side of it, I would be a lot more comfortable if we included all of the straw vote transportation projects that the council had wanted to, and have the scenarios before us this afternoon before we vote, so that all council members can be involved in a process of that magnitude, understanding what the implications would be, because we straw voted on a number of items. This, as you were talking about earlier, Dr. Orland, this changes some things from the original reconciliation, moves others. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here, and I do think that it's important that the straw votes of the council mean something, and that all of us be involved in the process as we discuss them.
I'm sorry, I have to say, if we were to do that, then we'll have to come back another day, because there's just too many other projects that were in the first reconciliation that were delayed, and creates a whole lot more. And you're talking about now more than one additional scenario. I mean, the scenario I was talking about was taking the initial reconciliation and adjusting it for Northwood, Wood Glen, and Page. Woodland and Page, sorry about that. if we're looking at all kinds of other options, we can't do that today.
Well, I think if we can't do it today, then we should do it another day, but I think we should get this right. I mean, this is the single most important thing that we do, passing a budget. And if it requires an extra day or two, then I think it would be appropriate. I mean, I was prepared to move forward on the budget as we were ready to vote on this morning, but I think with lots of changes here at the last minute, we ought to make sure that we're understanding and considering what we're voting on, particularly with something of this magnitude. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
No, I'm good, sir.
Councilmember Jawando, are you trying to get in?
Yes,
I
sorry.
didn't see a tech. Yeah, I saw a finger.
Yeah, if there's not a cue, there's a finger, sir.
There you go. No worries.
I'll just point out that, just clarify and point out, I think I'm correct in this, Ms. Dr. Orland, the first reconciliation was much kinder to transportation projects than the second.
Yeah, there was one project that got delayed in the second one more than the first one. It was one project.
Okay, there was still, and it was a significant delay. I think it was Observation Drive, if I'm correct, or
It was an extra year.
yeah.
One more year delay than what was in the first one.
Right. So, and what is being proposed is to have the first not have that delay, have the more modest delays that were much less than what the county executive sent over in all regards to transportation, and include these other projects, that the school projects. That's what you're coming back with at 1:30.
Yeah, again, it would be what you saw on Monday, the only difference being not decelerating Northwood, not decelerating Woodland,
Right.
and also not decelerating from the board's request page.
Right.
And then the
And
difference, the
assuming higher
delta
state.
is how much more state aid to be able to cover that differential, which will be FY 22, 23, I think probably 24. We'll see. We'll have to
Yeah.
say.
Appreciate it. And I think we should act on that today. I mean, I think there's a majority that wants to. We should have the information, but I just think that initial assumption on delays for other projects, it should stay the same. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Reamer, were you trying to get in? Okay. Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So I just want to close this out by thanking my colleagues. I know this is not easy, but this has been that kind of year. I harken back to when we were talking about indoor ice hockey and had a proposal that was before us that was sent to us that morning. And I just recall that we just had a health thing and had some amendments that were brought to us that morning. That has been this kind of year. And it's certainly one in which we've continued to adjust on the fly. It's just been that kind of year. But at the end of the day, I think what's most important is that our residents know that we are trying to do the very best we can with what we have, both limited resources, sometimes unfortunately limited information, and that goes for us, that goes for staff, that goes for the public. This is hard. This has not been an easy couple of years for us. And it's changed the dynamic of where we are in terms of how we typically do things. And so I just want to thank all of you. And again, hope that you understand that I am truly trying to work in the best interests of what I think as Education and Culture Chair is the best for us in terms of how we move forward regarding our schools and our kids. I've been in constant contact with our school partners and really feel as though this is a safe approach. This is one in which will help us to leverage. And I'll just remind folks of one thing. We have an election next year, and we will have a brand new governor. And whoever that governor is, while we did have the Build to Learn Act, keep in mind, Kerwin, and I'll just remind folks, Kerwin was tied to Build to Learn. And the only reason why we haven't been able to seize those Build to Learn dollars earlier is because of the governor's veto of Kerwin. So let me just be very clear. With a different kind of governor in Annapolis, it will make a tremendous difference in terms of what it is that we're able to do regarding capital funding. And so from that perspective, I just really want to say again that I think that we find ourselves in a good place if we adopt the memo that I've sent out. I really appreciate all of your support and look forward to the discussion at 1:30. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions or requests to speak. We'll be back at 1:30 to talk more about this. Now I believe we can move on to the operating budget, correct? Everybody? Great. This action will, when we take a straw vote on the operating budget, this action will confirm all the preliminary votes taken by the council thus far on department and agency budgets, as well as compensation with changes. I'll now call on Ms. Michelson.
Yes, I hopefully this will be a little bit easier than your discussion on the CIP.
Yes.
You have before you a tracking sheet that reflects all of the council's votes thus far, with a few changes I will go through. This includes your votes on individual departments, on agencies, on compensation. At the end of that process, there was a approximately $500,000 gap that we needed to fill. And we've done that through, fortunately, what is mostly technical corrections. First, we found that there were some positions new positions that did not have the standard lapse associated with new positions. OMB always assumes a 3 months lapse when it adds new positions. We found that in the Park and Planning Commission, their new positions did not have any lapse. And in our last minute effort to add some new positions to the legislative branch NDA, we forgot to add a little bit of lapse. And these positions first get created on July 1st, and then we start the recruitment process. So that there's no way to have somebody start immediately. The second change was we learned through new guidance on ARPA that the DHHS mobile crisis van was in fact eligible for ARPA funding. That was a change in policy. So the funding of that van has been moved from general fund dollars to ARPA dollars. And finally, a $50,000 reduction in the county dental program. As noted in the staff memo, there is significant other funding for that program. So if later on it does run short, we can revisit that with the council. Finally, we want to note that there were some fiscal policies that were in the county executive's budget as presented, which are, and there has been no change in terms of the council actions, assuming ending FY22 with a 9.6% reserve, a provision to change the definition of the adjusted gross revenue, the changes in ARPA that we briefed you on yesterday, and for this year, and hopefully this year only, setting the pay-go at 50% at policy with the assumption that it returns to policy next year. I did want to note that after approval of the budget, we will be returning to the Category 1 and Category 2 lists that the council identified for both ARPA funding and additional funding. We as staff will be working with the council president to set up a process for that review. And just to reiterate what was discussed yesterday, those lists are not final. There may be some additions to the list, and as we go through them, there may be some things taken off the list, either due to eligibility reasons or as the council reassesses priorities. And that's all I have, Mr. Council President. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Michelson. Okay. That, I don't see any discussion of the operating budget. Is there a motion to approve the operating budget?
So moved.
Councilmember Jaquando moves, Councilmember Reamer seconds. All those in favor of approving the operating budget, please raise your hand.
And just as a reminder that this is a straw vote and the final votes will be next week, right? Yes.
I have a question for you, Council President. As we voted,
Reamer.
we often make remarks I assume we're going to hold those for the later discussion. Okay.
It's up to the body. I'm seeing nods if you want to include the CIP in your remarks. Okay, great. Looking forward to your remarks. Okay, now we will have a public, that's true. We'll have a public hearing on a special appropriation for $250,000 for the Asian American Health Initiative COVID response. Action will follow the public hearing. There are no speakers for this public hearing. The public hearing is now closed. Council Vice President?
I'd like to move and then just discuss this briefly.
Please.
I need a second and then
Second.
I'll discuss. Okay.
Reamer seconds.
Thank you. I will be brief. Just our minority health initiatives and program have stepped up in such a significant way this last year. What they have done is extraordinary. And our Asian American Health Initiative is a perfect example of that. We know the tremendous and beautiful diversity that exists within our Asian American community, with multiple languages spoken, multiple cultures, certainly not a monolithic community. And AAHI has been such a bridge in helping to connect to those communities, to update them on testing strategies, update them on vaccinations, and to be able to translate materials in real time so that we can get out to the public, and addressing the tremendous social and emotional and mental health needs of the community that have arisen. We all stand with our Asian American community against hate and against the hate crimes that have been committed across our country and right here in Montgomery County. And so I'm proud to propose this today, this $250,000, which is a deposit. We will be revisiting this again this summer for the additional balance of $750,000 that we have committed. This buys us some time for AAHI to be able to confirm exactly which partners we are going to be able to partner with on this important initiative, and also be able to begin the process of working with the fiscal agent, which I credit HHS for helping to find, and thank the Department of Health and Human Services for their support of AAHI, both through this proposal and generally. So we have discussed this with them. They are thrilled with the support, and we look forward to voting on this today and then revisiting this again this summer.
Thank you. Well said. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Mr. President, I had
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, Councilmember Navarro. You're right.
Thank you. Yes, so also want to express my gratitude to the leadership of AAHI and generally the county's leadership in our AAPI community. It has been said time and time again that this is a very vibrant community here in Montgomery County. And it's extraordinary because it is not a monolith and just not necessarily speak the same language. And there are so many different issues. But the incredible thing that I always admire is the fact that this is a community that constantly comes together, thinking about the collective and thinking about how to best move forward with addressing many of the issues, many of those complex issues within this extraordinarily diverse community. And so I am very happy that we have been able to move forward with this particular amount of money at this time to help them put together this initiative, just as we have done with our Black community and our Latino community. And we've seen the results of that targeted approach, which has been quite positive, and I think a model. And so thank you, Councilmember Albornoz, for your leadership, of course, of the HHS committee and the HHS committee members, really the entire council, for making sure that these types of efforts are put forth, and that, of course, we know that in the end, what this does is that it helps all of us, because this is a partnership and government can't do everything. It helps all of us be healthier and have a better quality of life. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Terrific. The special appropriation passes. Thank you, Council Vice President. Okay, now we can take up the consent calendar. This is a special appropriation to the, that's it. Okay, is there a motion? You can read it. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
So moved.
Councilmember Katz moves, Councilmember Rice seconds. All those in favor of the consent calendar, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Great. And lastly, we have an announcement that the introduction of Bill 2021 Swimming Pools Lifeguard Requirement Amendments, which was originally scheduled for introduction on May 18th, is now scheduled for May 27th, 2021. A public hearing is scheduled for June 15th, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. That is it for now. I had asked, but I didn't get an answer. I think if it's okay with council members, I think it might be preferable to our staff to reconvene at 2:30, not 1:30. Are there any objections? Great. Okay. We will reconvene at 2:30 for the CIP. Thank you all. Good work.
Next 6 years, which is a $10 million